This National Professional Anglers Association video presentation is brought to you by Missouri Secrets Tackle and 241 Inc. Productions.
My wife made a statement long ago, bless her soul. She put a post on Facebook. How many of you guys got Facebook? Most all of us are playing on Facebook. Aren't the memories great when they come back? Well, most of you know I've lost my wife a couple, 3 years ago. And I was looking on Facebook the other day, and Donna never could understand what the job of being a fisherman was. You know, most people think we sit under a shade tree with a six-pack and catch fish and get paid, but that's not what it is. And we don't work 40 hours a week. We work 70 hours a week. We work 80 hours a week. And it's not necessarily 9 to 5. She never could understand that. And I saw a post that she put up that said basically, find a job that you love, because you'll never work a day in your life. And her post there was, my husband did that. And it was truly endearing to me that she finally got what my passion was about fishing. So we're going to talk about the lifeblood of a professional angler, and that's sponsorship. Because in actual reality, in my 26-year career on the Bassmaster Tournament Trail, I can probably only name 3 or 4 or 5 guys that have been successful enough reeling the big ones in to live on tournament winnings alone. So I feel like that's probably true for most of us in this room, that there are some extremely talented anglers in here, but I gotta have help, guys. I gotta have a little scholarship money to help me get through there. And see, I gotta be careful because the 2 of my bosses are in this room, so I can't talk ugly about them, but I might. But it's the relationships that we build that really become what is important. Do you guys know the fisherman's handshake, the competitive fisherman's handshake? Does anybody know that? You know, when we go to, that's close. When you go into a fraternity, there's that secret handshake that you always give one of your fraternity brothers. But it tends to be that most of us fishermen think that the fisherman's handshake to a sponsor is this: bring it on. You need me more than I need you, but you need me the most. That could not be anything but furthest thing from the truth. We need them more than us. And if what we're doing is good for them, then we will get benefits from that. If it's good for the company, it's good for us. But a lot of anglers don't see that. I want to throw one of our very own under the bus. Mr. Glorvigan, are you in here? I told him I was going to do this. Scotty and the G2 folks and all the folks that make these wonderful, nice, cool-fitting jerseys that we have here, they've made our job twice as damn tough because they've made it available, this jersey, available to our consumer base, our fans that help pay our bills. And I told Scotty I was mad at him. How do I differentiate myself as a professional angler on the first impression now that everybody walking down the aisles at the Bassmaster Classic or the PWT Classic has got the same shirt as I have? It makes it hard. So now we are challenged to rise above the fact that we've got I call this a Girl Scout jersey. Because in the bass fishing world, the more of these little patches you get on here, the more right that most of the guys get to complain. So I call them Girl Scout badges. They don't do a very good job selling Girl Scout cookies sometimes. And that's what we're here to do. You know, the first element of being a professional angler is being able to catch fish. You have to put yourself in front of the group in some manner, showing that you have credibility and you are a capable angler. When I started this dream as a very young person, younger than some of these high school kids back here, my dream was to be a pro angler. But did I want to win the Bassmasters Classic? Did I want to win every tournament? Did I want to be Angler of the Year? No. My goal was to be recognized that if my name was in a conversation, that I was lucky enough to be viewed upon as that Menendez guy, he can catch a bass, and he knows what he's talking about. I wanted to be recognized as a credible angler. Fortunately, classics came along and tournament wins came along, and that helped elevate me in the eyes of the sponsors. But that's the first element, to get their attention. Consistency as an angler. So work on your craft. Figure out how to catch that one more fish that you need. Because I'm telling you, bless her heart, Donna in heaven, she's still mad at me because I took years off of her life because I was always bubble boy. I was either the last guy in the classic or the first guy out. The last guy in the money or the first guy out. The last guy in the top 12 or the 13th guy that got to go home. She said, would you just hurry up and get it over with? Get to where you need to be so we can enjoy this. But those things happen. You know, other things that sponsors can see you and get their attention is maybe a stage, you're on stage. And let's say you've had a cruddy day or you let a giant one. You know, you've got 15 minutes to fish before you've got to run back from Washington Island back to Sturgeon Bay. I've been there. Those are big waves. It won't take 15 minutes. And you're, for lack of a better term, you're out there trolling and you've got a crawler harness on there, and that crawler harness has got a little bitty hook on the back of it. And you get a bite. And the fish comes up to the top of the water, and I guess you're trolling, what, 1.2 or 2.1 miles an hour? I show my ignorance as far as walleye fishing goes, but you see this big fish, and it's one of those good ones that's about this long. And he's about that big around. He's got that little bitty hook, and the fish comes off in the battle, and you're demoralized. You can make a good situation out of this, even though that fish cost you money, it cost you a championship, whatever, and it may get you sponsor recognition when you're telling the story. So, yeah, I was trolling that Yamaha motor. It was trolling good at like 1.2 miles an hour. We'd been putting along. That slower speed was much more important today in getting that bite. That crawler harness had to be just barely above the rocks, and when you'd get a bite, it would be a good one. And I got the bite, the fish comes up, and my partner, you know, he's reaching out there. Why do you guys have those 18-foot long nets? I've never understood that. Anyway, he's reaching out there and he almost gets to the fish, and the fish makes one little flip and he comes off. You know, I'd been using 10-pound test line, and that was happening. It was a big risk. And it just killed us both. But that's what makes us go. Instead of going up there and going, yeah, Dave, you know, man, I tell you what, I had a crappy day. We had an 8-pounder on here. It would have blown this thing completely out of the water. Coming off as a real arrogant, self-confident. You know, we've all got to be confident. We're competitors. It's part of it. But we need to dumb that down, control that down, and be smooth and gentle to the public. They don't want to hear that. They don't want to hear that loss. But it gets Mr. Ittner's attention that he could have won the tournament. He was so close to winning the tournament, yet he's being positive about it. He's teaching. He was talking about 1.2 miles an hour, getting it close to the rocks, and that the Yamaha was dependable and reliable. And now I've got his attention because I'm selling his product for him. Stay positive. Negative Nellies never get anywhere. And now, I agree, as a fisherman, we certainly can be ugly. We can be as negative. All those little elements fall apart at one time. You know, and why does it always do that when you need one more to make the championship or make the next day? It always happens that way. But again, it's fishing. It's just fishing. It's the greatest excuse in the world not to have a real job, isn't it? I certainly think so. I've done it a long time. But this is also a time period that when you're on that stage, on that national stage, it's a chance for you to show your brand, show your originality, show how clever you can be to get a sponsor plug in there without it being, well, let's see. I want to thank Yamaha. I want to thank Strike King. I want to thank Garmin. I want to thank Lose Rods and Reels, Seagar. Let's see, who else? We're past that as anglers. The technological age has caught up with us. Look at our depth finders. Damn, I can watch TV on mine. I mean, I can play music. It's unbelievable. We're past those dark ages. What we have now are people that want instant gratification. You know, cell phone age. We want to be snap, quick. Instagram, Snapchat, all of that. We want to be quick and fast and light in our presentation. We don't want to be overbearing. Now, winning is nice. There's nothing wrong with winning. But in my 26-year career, I fished over 200 and some Bassmaster events. I've won 3 times. And I'm thrilled to have won 3 times. That's a lot more than a lot of other guys have, which means I've been a loser a lot more than I've ever been a winner. I'll say that again. I've been a loser more than I've ever been a winner. But I've turned that to my advantage by being responsible with the media. One of the biggest things I get from writers is, well, Mark, I'm calling you back because evidently you do know how to use a phone because you call me back immediately. It's the biggest way to get your brand and your exposure out there. This is all about exposure. This is about how do I get this logo, or whatever logo you have on, the most exposure that you possibly can. Now, that's difficult in quantifying into sales, but as long as Mr. Ittner or Mr. Copley back there from Strike King knows that I am moving that brand label forward, I'm going to have employment. I'm going to have a job. The lights are going to be on at home. My kids are going to be fed, and everything's going to be great. But moving it forward, pay me with exposure, and I will win. That's better than winning a tournament. There's been many times in which I've done something at a tournament, and I got as much or more exposure than the actual tournament winner did. And that was just by being quick with the media. The other thing is that really amazes me, particularly on the bass side, when we get a young guy in there and he's a great young fisherman and he starts seeing his names in lights and he's in the magazines, he's on television. Wow, damn, that head swells quick, doesn't it? It's amazing to me. I was the new guy on the block at Skeeter in 2004. I'd just come over there working for another boat brand, and it was important to me to find a place in which is a merit-based system. I don't do well in political systems. I tell the truth 99 times out of 10. I work hard, I put a lot of sweat and blood into it, and that's been successful for me. If I have to wear knee pads and be political, I'm out. I don't do well in those situations. So I was at the first event that I went to for Skeeter, and that was the Skeeter Owners event. And that is an event in which Skeeter and Yamaha give back to their owners and put on this great event for their boat owners. There's 2,000 fishermen in this tournament. There's 1,100 boats, and there'll be 4,000 to 5,000 people at this event. It's the biggest family reunion I've ever been to. So I'm there, I'm the new guy on the block, and my pro staff director says, Mark, I need your help. And I said, yes, sir, what can I do? He says, you see those 12 new Skeeter boats out there? You know, they were big FX20s with 250s on them, tandem axle. I said, yes, sir. He says, I need you to go out there and scrub the blue off the tires. Now, let me set this stage. It's the 1st of June near Dallas, Texas. It's hotter than Africa. Your sweat is sweating. It's nasty. It's hot. He asked another angler to go over there with me. Now, that angler had been with Skeeter and Yamaha for a long, long time. He was one of their fair-haired boys. And I'm like, okay, boss, I'm on it. So there's the bucket. There's my big brush, and here I go. Why does that blue not come off there very well? What is that? Do what? Brillo pad. I'd have given 1,000 for a Brillo pad, I promise. So I'm scrubbing, and here comes the sweat. I mean, let it rain. And the other guy's over there, and he's just bitching and moaning and complaining. Well, I've been here 20 years, and I'm a professional angler, and I'm not a janitor, and, you know, I can't believe they've asked me to do this. And I'm like, okay, dude, whatever. I'm just scrubbing. That's what I was told to do. I'm scrubbing tires. Now, 12 times 4 is what, 48? That's 48 tires plus 12 spare tires. That's 60. And there's 2 buckets there. Well, I look up, and that guy has bailed before I get done with the first 2 tires. And then all of a sudden, I hear somebody on the other side of the boat that I'm working on. He's scrubbing over there. About that time, I stood up. I went like this, and the other guy stood up, and he looked at me, and I make eye contact, and my eyes are about this big. Well, guess who that was? That was Mr. Jeff Stone, the president of Skeeter Boats. And he says, hot, isn't it, Mark? I go, yes, sir, it is. I was a little nervous realizing that he had just heard this conversation of this other angler bitching and moaning that he was too good to be scrubbing tires. The point of this whole story is get your hands dirty. Get in there and dig. We're no better than anybody else. Just because we get to go fishing for a living doesn't mean that we can't do that hard work too. That sweat equity has provided very well and given me the credibility and the trust of the 2 organizations, Skeeter and Yamaha, to have their name on my chest. And I very proudly wear that because they do trust me. Credibility, you know, it goes back with the media. It's being credible with being a recognized authority. You know, when you give interviews to your writers, be honest. Don't hold back. What are the chances that that guy that you meet at the sports show, the one coming up here in Minneapolis, which many of you will be there, that he comes up and he's asking you a trolling crankbait question, and there's a little trick to what you do to get that fish to bite, to be successful with that technique? What's the chances of that guy ever being in the same professional tournament that you're in? Small? Limited? Be honest. Be straight up honest. Because I'm going to tell you one thing about the consumers. They like technology and they use it well, and they can figure out Mr. Ittner's email address pretty quick. And if you come off like a know-it-all or you're too good to talk to him, he'll get Mr. Dave's address and say, hey, I spoke to your angler, Mark Menendez, at such a boat show, and I'm very surprised that you have him representing your company, and the litany goes down the line. Now, bad news always travels much faster than good news, doesn't it? So good news can travel well, too. We were at Santee Cooper several years ago. This was 2008. My wife, my children were there. My kids were little bitty. And I had one of the greatest tournament days I ever had. I weighed in over 30 pounds of bass one day. I had 30 pounds and 3 ounces. Biggest sack I've ever caught in a BAS's competition. Santee Cooper's full of timber. It's shallow. Man, it is a train wreck if you get out of the channels. And there are no buoys hardly, so you're kind of puckered up as you're running along because you're going to hit something. Of course, I have this big sack of fish, and I've got about 30 minutes to get in. I'm in the lower lake, and I should have idled another 20 feet to go on, and I didn't, and I showered down on it, and wham! First thing I do, I hit something. I stop and I look, and my prop's okay, and I spin my shaft, and I can see it's like this. I've bent my prop shaft. Well, I'm 30 miles from home with 30 pounds in the bag. So I, for 30 miles, old Yamaha gets me there, dependable as it could be. I get in and I weigh in 30 pounds and 3 ounces. I'm ecstatic. Donna is through the moon. I've got 55 pounds in 2 days. And so I go to the service trailers to get my motor fixed, get it looked at. Our Yamaha guy was working on another boat, so I'm parked there. And I was in one of the latter flights, so most everybody had already left. And I see this young couple coming. And they were pushing a stroller. It's a young family. They're in their early 30s. 2 little bitty kids, about the same size as mine. And the guy pulls up to me, and I'm working on my tackle because I'm still waiting to get my motor fixed. And he says, how'd you do today? I said, dude, I had a great day. I caught 30 pounds. I couldn't believe it. He was excited. He goes, wow, 30 pounds. What was your biggest one? I said, they were all like 6.5 pounders. There was not a big one. I caught lots of them today. He got all excited about it. His wife was smiling, and his wife was talking to my wife, and he's, well, how'd you catch them? I said, well, I caught them on a Strike King tube, and I caught them on a great big lizard, and there were bedfish, and you could see them bite it, and it was real cool, and the whole thing escalates, and then the next thing he says, well, how do you like that Skeeter boat? And I said, dude, it's the greatest thing ever. It's why I caught these fish. How's that? I said, well, but the way it's engineered in the center of gravity makes the boat only floating 15 inches. And I had to go like 200 yards and 15 inches to find a little bit of deeper water. And without the boat, I never caught these fish. And he asked me another real pointed question. Well, what about this Yamaha? Why are you running a 225 versus a 250? I said, well, it's for economics. The 225 uses less oil. It gets a little bit better gas mileage. And the speed differential is maybe a mile an hour. And it costs less. How many of these have you had? I said, oh, this is about my 5th or 6th one. Well, man, good luck tomorrow. Thanks. I said, well, you guys are great. Nice to see you. Man, those kids are cute. You kids be good. Never see the people again. Well, I have another chance encounter with Mr. Stone about a month and a half later. He calls me, and Mr. Stone never calls me, or I never call him unless I need something that's strictly business. And he says, hey, Mark, how are you? How's Donna and the kids? I said, they're great. They're great. How are you? He says, I'm great. Well, I need to talk to you. And I immediately got that same feeling you get when the blue lights come on behind you. Oh, y'all know the one? Like, uh-oh, what did I do wrong? He says, tell me about Santee. I said, oh, Jeff, I did so good those first 2 days. I whacked them good, and then I didn't catch them the last day, and I was really disappointed. He goes, no, I know how you did in the tournament. What happened in the service yard? Service yard? What are you talking about? Did you talk to somebody there? I'm thinking, and I said, yeah, I met a nice young couple that were there for their first bass tournament. They'd never been to a bass tournament. They were really nice, and I told him how I caught my fish, and he asked me a question about the boat, and then they were off and they were gone. He said, let me read you something. And he reads a letter to me that basically says, Dear Mr. Stone, I want to tell you about a chance encounter with professional angler Mark Menendez. We were at the Santee Cooper event to meet and greet the sport's finest, in which we attempted to meet 3 of our favorite anglers who didn't have the time for us. Mr. Menendez was gracious with his time and his family. He gave me fishing information. He gave me engineering information on both of your products, your boat and your motor. And I wanted to let you know that our sole purpose for coming to this tournament was to meet our favorite anglers and to ask them about what boat brand and what boat motor they would suggest. He's the only one that had time to talk to us. I want to tell you that we bought an SL 180 fish and ski boat as our first boat, an 18-footer fish and ski with a 150 Yamaha on it, and we would have never done that had we not met Mark Menendez. That is what we need to do, because as I said, if it's good for the company, it turns around and is good for us. Spending time with that consumer. They're the ones that pay our bills, guys. It's not the companies. If we're not driving sales either through exposure of logos on Facebook, taking your local fishing writer out, doing a national story in a national magazine, or doing our own YouTube videos, we're not pushing that brand label out there. And if we don't do that, everything comes to an absolute halt. Loyalty. Loyalty to a brand, loyalty to a group, loyalty to people. This shirt right here has not changed very much in the last 15 to 18 years. And I'm very proud of that. Last 15 to 18 years. Think about what 2007, 2008, and 2009 did to the fishing industry, particularly the walleye industry. You guys got mashed. You lost almost every big circuit that you had. Boat sales went in the tank. And I remember a particular phone call that Mr. Ittner gave me one time about that time. Hey, Mark, how are you? He'll recall this. He says, I need to talk to you. The blue lights came back on. He says, we need to talk about contracts. And I said, yes, sir. He says, Mark, I'm going to have to give you a 50% reduction in your contract. Of course, the numbers start. 2008, 2007, 8, 9, was there a boat sold in the United States? There might have been 2 or 3 or 4. It was terrible. Everything went stagnant. So I'm thinking, oh God, I've got a mortgage, I've got a truck payment, I've got credit card bills, I've got all of this stuff. And Dave's being very sympathetic to the whole thing. And so I don't hear a lot of what he's saying because I'm panicking. And so I said, Dave, do I still have a job? And he says, absolutely you have a job. We want you. We need you. Okay, great. So I gather my senses a little bit and I said, okay, Dave, I will work twice as hard for half. I will do that and take it on the chin for the team. I want to make it better for everybody. I focused, I worked hard, and I had my career year in 2009. I won an event. I had 7 top 10s. I missed 1 check out of 13 events. I was in the fight for Angler of the Year until the last day of the season. I had a banner year. And I'm thinking, boy, I'm fixing to get me a big fat raise. And I came back to him and I said, hey, look at what I did. We're so proud of you. You won money. You made the classic. You won events. You knocked it out of the park on the media. But there's no money to give you. You're going to have to continue to work for what we agreed upon. I said, not a problem. Good deal. Enter 2012. And I'm going to get emotional. I'm sorry. I am on my way, literally, to the Texas Toyota Bass Classic in September in Lake Conroe in Texas. My wife's favorite term for me was Bojack. She called me a Bojack because I was lazy, and I've kind of gotten to where I procrastinate. I don't know if that's because of the gray hair in my head now, or I've been there and done that so much. It's hard to leave home. The travel is the worst part of our jobs. There's no doubt about it. I'm 15 minutes from home. I should have already been 10 hours down the highway. And my wife calls me. And she says, I'm going back to the doctor. Where are you? I said, honey, I'm 15 minutes from home. I just left. She says, oh my God, you're running late, aren't you? I said, yeah. She says, is there any way you can come back and see me? I said, yes. Can you meet me at the doctor's office? Be there in 15 minutes. And I got that sinking feeling. She'd had some itching conditions on her skin and some unexplained things that were happening with her. And this is not going to be good. I knew it was not going to be good. We get there and they send us into the office, into the examination room, and they put us in the one on the far left. We've been going to this doctor for years, and I didn't even know they had a room down there. We're sitting there, and Donna had had a MRI 3 days before, and we hadn't gotten the results. And so in comes Dr. Long, and he sees me, and he says, Mark, I'm glad you're here. Sinking feeling, the blue lights came back on again. And we have a discussion, and Dr. Long, now, to know my wife, she was the life of the party. And I've got friends in here, Dan O'Sullivan, and Mark Copley, and David Ittner, that were all at Donna's funeral, that absolutely adore. They liked her better than they liked me, I promise you. She was a lot of fun. And so Dr. Long says, Donna, you have a growth on your pancreas. Donna's like, well, okay, let's go get it. And all the while, I immediately crumble, knowing what that means. There's a long pause in the room, very, very long, uncomfortable pause. Dr. Long looked at me, and I looked at him, and it was kind of like this brotherly look going, are you going to tell her or am I? And I said, Donna, this is probably pancreatic cancer. She's shocked. It puts our lives in a tailspin. She goes through immediate surgeries, chemo, radiation, the whole 9 yards. Now, most of you all may not know that there's only a 6% chance of someone diagnosed with pancreatic cancer living 2 years. And I already knew these numbers. Donna was just like, we'll just get it cut off, we'll all be good. Well, Donna fought a gallant fight, 18 months, in which, on my way to the TTBC, which is the third highest paying tournament in bass fishing, I call my sponsors and I tell them I'm not going to be there. And most likely you can forget about me being at next year's tour. My wife's been diagnosed. She's been given a death sentence. In today's economic times, what happened to the Menendez family, absolutely remarkable, in that every logo on that shirt, every contract that was with someone on that shirt was ratified and worked on and worked through that next 12 months of that contract. Her health improved. I did not fish the tour that year, but her health improved that year as we had hope. And I worked like a dog. I worked 80 sponsorship days, 80 promotional days for my sponsors, because they had kept me on salary. They had kept my contracts in place. We get bad news in December that the cancer is back, and I lose Donna March the 25th of 14. My sponsors were at the funeral. Most of them were there. That was an honor that was unbelievable. They not only supported my family 1 year, but they supported it 2. Had I not been that loyal person, had I not been that angler that had given every spare moment, had gotten my fingernails dirty, had sweated and taken every opportunity to promote, had earned their trust, earned their loyalty, that may have not happened. It's the most humbling thing that's ever happened to me in my life, and I'm grateful. So we have responsibilities to these companies that we represent. Here's a hot topic. Here's a perfect example. How about the national anthem? Really? This ain't the NFL. This is a group of people that is respectful of those that have come before us, respectful of those that have lost their lives to give us the privilege to fish for a living. I've seen guys not realize that the national anthem was going on and throw that boat into neutral and kill that motor and slide up and almost kill people to stand up and honor their country. Take that darn hat off and honor their country. We don't have that problem of ego in our sport. We have different angles of it because we're all competitors, but we don't have that. It's certainly, like I said, it's such a privilege. And within the NFL, do you think Aaron Rodgers would ever disrespect our flag? No. Stand-up guy. Gives a great interview. It's kind of cool when these guys give interviews. Anybody ever watch that old movie Bull Durham about baseball, Kevin Costner? When he's teaching the rookie going down the highway, throwing out those cliches, just going to take it one day at a time. Going to do, going to one pitch at a time. We're going to get one for the team. Well, yeah, we have to do that sometimes. Sometimes we have to bite our tongue because we've had that cruddy day where we could have won and we didn't, and we really want to show our true colors, but we have to be reserved and we have to be a role model. We have to be protective of the sport. We have to be our own guardians. So we don't have to worry about that as anglers. Here's another topic that I think goes a long way and is an unsung part of this, and I'll be the first to admit I'm not good at this because I'm a true competitor. But you need to be a good loser because you're not going to win every tournament. Do you all know who the best loser on my tournament trail is? It's Kevin Van Dam. Kevin Van Dam, the most celebrated angler on my tour, on my side of fishing. Has won more classics, more money and everything. And his hand is the first hand out there to shake your hand when you've had a good day and you've put him down. Now that's class. We all need to do a better job of that. That's our responsibility as anglers. Be that person. Be that big person. Even if it's a guy that is kind of snaked in on you and cut you off or whatever, be that. That happens on the walleye side too. Be the bigger person. Be the bigger person for the people that have helped you get there. Help their integrity grow because you're using your own integrity and being that better person. Continuing education. I'm a 52-year-old man. I'm not good with a computer. I can hardly turn my cell phone on. But I'm getting ready to take computer classes at my local community college. The best class I took in college was one of my first semester classes. I had no clue that it would be as important to me as an angler, and that was basic public speaking. I'm not saying that you're any less of a person if you haven't completed college. That's not what I'm saying. I'm saying take advantage of the community college system, a local college, and go take that one class if you need to. Take basic public speaking. There's one guy on our tour who's a very close friend of mine, and I work with him on multiple pro staffs, and he is one of the most talented anglers on tour. He has won gazillions of dollars. That guy could catch more fish than the Tidy Bowl man, but he's basically very shy. So in the beginning, when he was coming up through the ranks, his fishing prowess put him way out here, way ahead of the rest of us. But when you stuck a microphone in front of him, he collapsed. It was miserable. And he has worked very hard. And now he has become a very good interview. You know, one of the things that his trait was, I caught those fish in a 2-minute interview. He said 58 times. You know, that's once every other second. Now it goes with the flow. He got some training, got some help, and now he's finished the final puzzle to where he's one of the classiest, most talented anglers and a very good value outside of his fishing capabilities. Now here's how you got to justify stuff. You've got to justify. Now, Dave Ittner and Mark Copley, we're friends. They're my bosses, and I work for them. But we have a very strong bond as friendship, too. And I have to justify every year my worth to them. I have to tell Mr. Ittner how many Yamaha outboards I've sold and that were paired with Skeeter boats. I need to show Mr. Copley how many spinner baits I helped drive. We did one television show with Strike King several years ago on Kentucky Lake, and Mark filmed it for me, and we were talking about color. And I basically took a red crankbait that had a yellow belly to it called a green tomato, which was one that had never had any promotion at all. It was a Series 4 bait in our lineup that had never had any promotion at all. And I blew all forecasts out of the water just by making an educational program showing why this color is important, what color does under the water. And we've driven sales through the roof. You still can't hardly buy a green tomato bait, and it's in every unit in the lineup. That one show justified my annual salary plus some. It gave me a little hint of maybe a little bit of retirement on that because it was such a home run. And justifying your existence is justifying how many exposures this Yamaha logo gets. There are multiple ways to do that. You're going to hear later in today from Dan O'Sullivan from Advanced Angler. He has a media tracking service that's affordable and great, and it's to the point, and it can show your sponsors how many times you've had hits to your website, how many times your name has been brought up in a specific topic, how many wins, whatever, how many times you're there. It's there, and it's in black and white. He sends that to Dave Ittner. He sends that to Strike King for me. There are other services out there. Pro Chatter, one that is in the booth here. Talk to those guys. That's the one Strike King uses, and it is quantifying and proving my existence. Used to, I have to have paper trail. I would spend $2,000 to $3,000 a year just in copying services, and I would send manuals, mounds of stuff. I would leave a paper trail telling them every time I went into a dealership and said hello, and guys bought this, and I talked about this and showed them new product. And then another one is Angler Track. These three services justify our means to the guys that hold the purse strings to the lifeblood of a professional angler. That lifeblood is sponsorship, and without that, most of us can't live. And finally, we are role models, we are mentors, whether we want that title or not. It's up to us to be advocates for this sport, and that's what the NPAA is going to do for us as a whole. Yes, I fish for fish that don't have teeth. You guys fish for fish that have teeth. The common bond is we fish for fish. And we love that whole concept of fishing. We love promoting. We love teaching it. It's the most important thing. And the one thing I want to do, I want you to challenge you to protect the honor of this sport. Protect it. I mean, protect it like it's one of your own. Go back to that magical place that I started with this afternoon. Go back to that, and where that brings us back to a kid. It brings us back to that place that is special to all of us. Whether there's teeth involved or there's no teeth involved in what we're catching, it doesn't matter. This is the only way our sport is going to stay relevant in this technological age. And it's up to us to bring the message to the masses, bring the message to that consumer base that fishing is good and fishing is wholesome. And through this, and through our professionalism, our sport will grow. I challenge you all to protect my sport. Protect it. Thank you guys for your attention. I appreciate it.